So the first element that we need if we're going to have a contract is agreement. So let's have a look at what we need for agreement. As I was mentioning before, agreement involves a meeting of minds. So two or more people are sharing an understanding and an intention. Generally, we see that when we have an offer and an acceptance of that offer. Now, once the offer and the acceptance have occurred, we've got agreement, and the contract comes into existence and people become legally obliged to follow the contract. Okay, so this is important for two reasons. One, it says we have a contract, and also agreement tells us when we had that particular contract. So what happens is at that point, so the offer, at the point it gets accepted, things like negotiations, expressions of interest, they turn into promises that are legally binding. They become terms of the contract. Okay? So that's why agreement is so important. So let's deal with the first issue, offer. So what is an offer? So an offer is when someone says that they're willing to enter a contract on these stated terms with the person to whom the offer is directed. So we've now got someone who's ready to enter a contract. They know the conditions or the terms that they're going to apply to the contract, and they know who they're directing that offer to. That person is called the offeror, and the person who is receiving the offer, who the offeree is directed at, is called the offeree. Now, as we've said before, that offer can be written, so you can write the offer to someone. You can tell them, it can be oral, verbal or oral, or it could be implied by conduct. The conduct could be as simple as walking up to the barista. That is someone who's immediately willing to enter a contract. The terms are they know what the coffee they're going to get is like because they've bought it several times before and they know how much it is. So the terms are pretty clear to them. And they're targeting their behavior at the barista, who's the representative of the coffee shop. So walking into the coffee shop shows, and up to the barista shows, you're immediately ready to enter that contract to buy a coffee for the price at which you're buying it with the barista on behalf of the coffee shop. But this raises a really big question, like what is not an offer? Very interesting. We've got a couple of classic cases here to have a look at, differentiating an offer from things that aren't offers, but may actually look like them. Let's have a look. So our first case is Pharmaceutical Society and Boots Chemists. So this is a really interesting case because it was about disruption in business. So what used to happen in chemist shops was normally there would be a counter and the drugs or anything you wanted to buy would be behind that counter. So you would come into the shop and the chemist would be behind the counter. They would go get the drugs and then they would serve you. Okay. And there'd be a cash register here. That was the normal chemist shop, normal or the old chemist shop. Now, Boots Chemists changed the layout. What they did was they put all the drugs on the outside of the shop, on shelves on the outside. The customer would come in, select what they wanted, and then they would go to the counter. And then they would pay for it at the counter, and a chemist was here. Now, one of the big advantages of this Boots approach was it was much cheaper. You didn't have an employee getting the drugs for you like under the old system. What you actually had was you self-served, right? And then took it up and really the person didn't have to move. So they could serve a lot more people a lot quicker, which cut the cost. Okay. So the Pharmaceutical Society, who represented a lot of the chemists using the old model, was actually quite upset with this new model. And what they did was they worked out that the Pharmacy and Poisons Act said the sale of certain drugs had to be supervised by a registered pharmacist. So what they were arguing, what the Pharmaceutical Society was arguing, was that the goods on the shelves were an offer. When the person came in, they accepted the offer, right? Which meant the contract formed here. Where was the chemist? In the middle. The chemist wasn't supervising it. And so they were arguing that this Boots model was illegal, that it breached the Pharmacy and Poisons Act. Boots was arguing, actually, no, these goods, they're not an offer. They're an invitation to treat. Okay, an invitation to treat is an offer to make an offer. And they said when the customer comes in, there's an invitation to treat, they pick up the goods, they offer to buy it, which then the pharmacist accepts. So the contract occurs here and it's okay. Okay, so if the goods are an actual offer, then it's an illegal sale because there's no chemist. If the goods are an invitation to treat and the offer is actually made by the customer offering to buy it, then it's okay and it's a legal model. And the court held that the customer is making the offer at the checkout and the acceptance was by the pharmacist, right? Because what it meant was, look, if you accept this society, the Pharmaceutical Society's argument, it means once you took something off a shelf in a shop, you wouldn't be able to put it back, right? And that's not how things commercially work. So for that reason, there's the general principle that displaying goods on shelves actually reflect an invitation to treat and a willingness to negotiate or an offer to make an offer. It's not an offer in and of itself. Okay, second case we've got is the Carbolic Smoke Ball Company. Now look, this is a bit of a difficult case because it covers lots of principles of law. It was a very important case. So what it was about was this certain kind of remedy. Influenza was killing a lot of people. And so this company came out with something called the Carbolic Smoke Ball. And if you stuck it up your nose and sprayed it, they said that you would not get influenza. Okay. And they put ads. So we've got the ad here that was actually in the paper. Okay. Now, normally, the courts say ads are invitations to treat, not an offer. Why? Well, imagine if you put an ad in the paper and you had 100 of the thing in stock and 10,000 people came in. They'd be able to sue you for breach of contract, right? And you can't actually manage the demand. You put an ad out, you don't know how many people are going to say yes or no. So it's commercially, you can't really, we couldn't really operate with ads if they were considered offers. So the courts generally say ads are an invitation to treat. Carbolic Smoke Ball was a very rare exception. Why? Because of this. They offered a £100 reward if you got the flu while you were taking it. And then you go, well, isn't that just puffery? Isn't that merely them trying to induce you? But look at this. They said, look, to show you we're so serious, we've got £1,000 deposited at this bank that we can pay out this reward if you catch the flu. Now, it was this issue, the fact that they deposited this money, etc., which said, look, in this case, this ad is actually an offer. And it's an offer to pay out that money if you use the Carbolic Smoke Ball and catch the flu, which is what actually happened in the case. So most times, though, an ad is an invitation to treat. Under some circumstances, it can be an offer. So what we've got to do is distinguish an offer from an invitation to treat. An invitation to treat is an offer to consider offers and cannot create an agreement, right? All it does is results in an offer which can be accepted or not. What are invitations to treat? Generally, ads are, catalogs are, price lists, goods in shop windows, goods on shelves. However, there are some things that look like that aren't invitations to treat, that are offers. First, we've noticed that if there's something very specific that turns it into an offer, like in Carlisle and the Carbolic Smoke Ball Company, or certain kinds of automation, right? As technology's caught up with automation, we move some things that you might normally say are an invitation to treat to become an offer. So vending machines, right? The goods on display in a vending machine are an offer. Why? Because all you can do is put your money in. That has to be the offer. When you put your money in, it's an acceptance, right? So the goods on display in a vending machine are an offer. Same thing as a car park, right? At the entrance there where they've got the machine, it's an offer. As soon as you take the ticket, you've accepted it. Okay, so they're things that are actually offers. You actually really need to look at the intention of the parties, but these are the general rules to differentiate an invitation to treat from an offer. Now we just want to distinguish one other thing from an offer. Okay, so we've got to look at a case, Harvey and Facey. So this was back in a day when there was telegraphs, right, rather than telephones. So that meant people used short phrases. And the plaintiffs in the case telegraphed to the defendants, will you sell bumper haul pen, telegraph lowest cash price. So they're saying, will you sell, and bumper haul pen was just the name of this estate. So will you sell your house, telegraph lowest price, okay? And what happened was the defendants replied, lowest cash price, $1,800. Okay. The plaintiffs treated the telegram as an offer, and they telegraphed back, agree to buy. Okay. Agree to buy bumper haul pen, agree to buy the house for $1,800 asked by you. Okay, but the defendants refused to sell the property. What did the court say? The court said, look, this telegram, the second one, okay, this wasn't an offer to sell. This was a response to a request for information, right? So they're saying, what is the lowest price you would sell it for? The lowest price we'd sell it for is $1,800. That's not the same as saying, we'll sell it to you for $1,800. Okay. The second telegram was an indication of a minimum price that if the defendants decided to sell is the minimum that they would accept. Therefore, this telegram, the third telegram, right? The third telegram, the purported acceptance was not an acceptance. That was actually an offer to buy, which the defendants rejected. So there was no contract. So a response to a request for information is not an offer. Business sales and business in general involves a lot of negotiating, a lot of to and fro. So we've got to understand what's the difference and when does an offer truly materialize? So responding to a request for information is not the same as making an offer. An invitation to treat is not an offer, and we've got to be able to distinguish those things. The final thing to take note of in this little video is noting who can you make an offer to. You can make an offer to an individual, to a specific person, and then it can only be accepted by them. You can make it to a group. So for instance, I could make it to the class. I could offer to the class, the first person to buy me a coffee, I'll give them $20, right? That would be an offer to that group. No one from outside the class can accept that offer, but anyone inside the class can. Or you could make an offer to the world at large. That's what happened in Carlisle and the Carbolic Smokeball Company, right? With the ad, they were offering to everyone, the world at large, that if you used our smoke ball and caught the flu, we would pay you this £100. So an offer can be really targeted or really broad. Okay, that's some basics about what an offer is and what an offer is not. Now we've got to see what happens once we've got an offer. How does the offer terminate in the next video?